Hello everybody, this is Gregory with How I Lost Over 100 Pounds and have kept it off for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitance in your weight loss and in your weight maintenance. Today I'm going to ask you the question, what is your long-term plan? What's your long-term plan for weight maintenance? Now before we begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Also check out my website, which has hundreds of articles and recipes. My podcast, The Awakened Man, which is very health related. I've had it since 2017. Check out my books on Amazon. Also The Cinema Rag, which is a podcast on movies and so forth. And if you appreciate my content, there is a link for PayPal. So I posited the question as to what is your long-term goal of, what's your long-term plan when it comes to weight loss? Because I've quoted the study common and often here that 80% of people who lose more than 50 pounds regain it or gain more of it back. So it is a small minority group of people that are able to lose the weight and keep it off. And so clearly you want to be in that minority group. You want to be in that group that I'm in. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way, but just statistically I'm in that minority group since it's been 32 years now. You want to be in that group, right? Why would you want to lose weight and then gain it back, right? Nobody wants that. You don't want that. So what's your planning? What's your planning? And I think this is important because when I lost my weight, way back in the early 90s, I didn't have a plan. If you go to the last episode of my playlist, Confessions of an Obese Child, I talk about how did I lose the weight? And it wasn't like I did some 5-year plan or some plan on to keep it off. I just was, for whatever reason, I got a little momentum. I lost some water weight, and then I had some things line up for me where I just got the momentum and I lost all my weight. And then I blinked and I was like, okay, great. I have a history of binge eating and self-loathing and all these things. Now what am I going to do? In retrospect, I can look back, but I didn't have that mindset. Now what am I going to do? It was just like, oh my God, I have this new body. I definitely have this petrifying fear that I'm going to gain the weight back. But there was nothing, no groundwork really there to help me achieve that long-term goal. And so every day was a petrifying fear that I was going to binge or I was going to get injured and not be able to work out, because I was doing calorie in, calorie out for years, if not at least a decade. So I had no framework, and I hadn't done the deep work that I always talk about here that you must do to tackle your demons as to why, in the first place, you have a disordered relationship with food, typical childhood trauma. And I didn't do any of that. I wasn't even cognizant of that at all. It was just kind of an ad hoc, piecemeal approach that eventually, 15 to 20 years, if you go to Revelations of a Weight Loss, where in my second personal playlist, I talk about it took me about 20 years to eventually get to the demons that were causing me to do it. And so before that, I was just calorie in, calorie outing every day, and I was just fortunate to keep my weight down. So I would tell you, from my personal experience, don't do what I did. Don't do what I did, because it won't necessarily work. And this is one of the reasons why that large majority of people who do lose the weight regain it back, because they typically crash dieted. They still have an unhealthy relationship with food or alcohol. They associate emotions to food and alcohol. So if I'm sad, I got to binge eat. If I'm happy, I got to binge eat, binge drink. If I'm fill in the blank, I got to do that. And so you're always going to turn to that no matter what, until you rewire your thinking. That's why cognitive behavioral therapy is very good in this regard. So I would tell you to do the long-term planning, because I do think you will lose the weight. And for those of you who've lost the weight and you're at the beginning of the second chapter, which is weight maintenance, which is infinitely harder, I would tell you, start making a plan. And what are some obvious, basic, easy things? Well, I could talk about in the first episode I ever did, the number one thing you must do for weight loss and weight maintenance is change your paradigm. So you have to fundamentally change your paradigm, because whatever your paradigm was in the past didn't work. That's why you got fat. So you have to change a lot of your lifestyle. So easy ones would be work out every day. We just did an episode on what's your motivation? How do you get motivated? But working out every day. So at least you'll have that calorie out. So even if you're not having a healthy relationship with food yet, and that could take you a long time, you'll still have that calorie out. What else for long-term planning? Sleep well, right? Sleep hygiene is so important. Get your sleep. Another one is I would go to BetterHelp.com, and of course, clearly I don't have some contract with them or anything like that, but go to these online therapy places, unlimited therapy for a monthly fee, or have a personal therapist. That way you can have somebody to process, because you do need to talk about your past. I'm telling you, you do need to talk about your past. Other things, have good relationships with your family. Stop blaming your parents. Stop blaming people for you being fat in the first place. So these are just a couple of things that you can do to kind of lay the foundation for what your long-term plan is. And then ultimately, it's got to be tackling the food, tackling the disordered relationship you have with food. And that is like a multi-tentacle approach, because there's, to use another mythical creature, a 7-headed hydra. You kill one, slash the head off, it's going to regrow. And unless you do the deep work to no longer have a disordered relationship with food and be like the dog who only eats when he's hungry and walks away. Easier said than done. But the point is don't do what I did and have an ad hoc approach to weight loss. I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out if I lose the weight, and then you lose the weight and you're like, no, my friends, don't do that. Plan. And these are just some suggestions. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. What are your plans, long-term plans, or what has worked for you? Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.